to help our garden birds. It's probably actually a good time of year to be doing it because this weather's changed a wee bit at the minute. It's starting getting chillier out there. So one of the things we're sort of blessed. A lot of people here have their own back gardens and all anyway. So birds are one of the more obvious things that we get coming into them. A whole variety of finches, you have the blackbirds, thrushes. If you're lucky, you might get the redwings. Thing to keep an eye out for as well. Anybody with in around Whitehead, sort of Island McGee direction. There's quite a lot of waxwings about this year. So they might come in if anybody's got any small apple trees or cotton Easter trees. They'll actually come into those, eating the berries. But they're great to have around the garden for eating your slugs and your snails, all the insects, all the things you eat, all your plants, and you're trying to grow them. My heart's broke half the time just with the snails going around eating all the vegetables. But a lot of stuff's really struggling at the minute, just because we have to provide food and shelter for ourselves. We have to have our own housing. And development's going up in all these brownfield sites, and there's lots of things going on that's having a big impact on them. But our gardens are a great sort of corridor through areas. So you think of some of the big developments. If everybody's back garden had a half decent sort of wildlife patch left, even at 10 feet, strip of wild flowers or anything at all, just a wee bit of rough where the animals can pass through and go and feed around and get a wee bit of shelter as well. A great, brilliant corridors right the way through, which then can link up to all our nature reserves, which is actually a lot of the time that we're trying to work with the nature reserves around sort of creating these networks. So we link up with other organizations as well. So we've got these huge big swathes that no animals can at least come out through to have good, safe habitat for them. But probably the most showy one you'll get in your garden, be the like of the goldfinches. They're quite nice, and if you've got a feeder up, anybody that's into photography, I'm lucky I sort of do a fair bit of it. You can set up your shots, have it all lined up, and you can sit in the comfort of the back room with the window open and literally photograph out the window to get your goldfinches. I remember years ago, the first time I'd always been told, "Oh, they only take Niger seeds. You have to put Niger seeds out." An awful lot of the time, I would just get them out with sunflower hearts, save myself a fortune, and you'll get as much coming into sunflower hearts as anything. You can see here this pair of bullfinches. They love our back garden, but they go across and they sort of breed in there's a field about sort of 50 meters away, and they go over around the hedgerow of it, around the wind bushes and stuff there. But sunflower hearts is far less mess. You can use stuff with the husks, and you can buy the cheaper mixes full of, a lot of time it's full of filler. So it's full of grain and things you got. And you end up having more issues and just trying to keep, because the birds just pick out stuff they don't want, throw it on the ground. And that's where you're going to get your problems, your rats and things you got coming in. Now, if you have pigeons, you're laughing. Because what will happen a lot of the time, the pigeons will go around and eat all the grain off the ground for you. So they'll help clean up. But like I say, bog standard sunflower heart feeder, you can see this big tube feeder. It's quite good. You can sort of see the two perches that the birds are on there. They unscrew off the side of that one. So it's really easy to clean, like once a week. So I have two feeders, but one clean that's left drying out, and then the one that the food's in. So that's all about sort of hygiene around them and the stuff spreading diseases. But the like of these tube feeders are really easy to clean. You can take the two perches off the side, the two wee feeding ports fall away then. And I just soak the whole thing in a bucket of sort of warm detergent, give it a real good scrub out on the inside with a bottle brush, and make sure the whole thing's cleaned out. I have my other feeder then hanging up while this one's drying out over the week. And hygiene's one of the key things to stop spreading disease. There's been, especially with bird flu and things like that. For a while there, I actually stopped feeding. Just thought I don't want to run the risk of contamination or anything happening to the birds that were coming to the garden. All through the summer, it didn't matter. There's plenty of food out there in the hedges for them, and around the gardens are feeding chicks and all anyway. So they don't need so much of the big seeds. But you can see here, this like this goldfinch. I'll see if this wee video will play for us. Should do. So I just set this trail camera up. You can see this is sort of near the two feeders, but they're identical. They're quite a good one. I think it's Pets at Home or whatever we're doing them. It shouldn't really be advertising other companies, but sure. The like of them, they're easy to work with, easy to clean, which is the secret. If you have something that's difficult to take apart to clean down, you'd be less inclined to do it. Wherever it's easy to do, you can have two feeders on the go, one clean and one working for you. You can see actually where I've got this feeder. Can't really, oh yeah, the cursor in the background here. This is sort of the edge of the hedgerow in the garden. It's quite dense, but I actually have where this feeder set up. It's on a steel bar, one of these ones with the curved top, just a single feeder hanging on it. Means the squirrels can't climb up it. Not that I really get too many squirrels in my garden, lucky enough, but it means the grey squirrels can't get up to it. Same again with rats and things they can't climb up to the feeder, so it's just more hygienic for everybody. But I make sure it's set just on the edge of the hedge, sort of a couple of feet out, so like the neighbour's cats. Now, don't get too many cats in the garden because of 2 dogs, but if you can keep the feeder somewhere with it's a clear bottom, so you can have it on the edge of the shrubs, but as long as there's a clear area below it, so the cats can't hide in there to jump out onto the birds on the ground, you've got a half chance then. The other problem can be sometimes you get these the anti-squirrel feeders, or the cage you put around the feeder, can cause a few issues as well because it makes it easy pickings for the likes of sparrowhawks and things like that. No, that's a playing game. But the cages you can get around those feeders, the sparrowhawks actually can get at the birds easier because the birds can't fly away as quick, so they can't bail off the feeder and be straight into the scrub. They can actually grab the birds in through the cages. Another thing you can use, even like these fat ball feeders, what I've actually started to do now is put chicken wire around the inside of this. So just smaller holes. It stops these fat balls dropping out. So once it gets a certain size, it falls out through the cubes. I should actually got a photograph up of it, but by the time I got home this evening, it was too dark. Those wee feeders, when the fat balls get broken down to a certain size, they fall out in chunks out through it. If you have your dog running around, he eats one of these. It does make them a bit sick. They're a wee bit rich for them. But you can use basically a tiny chip of wire around the inside of it, drop the fat balls down into as normal, and the birds can still peck it out through, but the big chunks of fat ball don't fall out. Fat balls are long-tailed tits. I don't know what they naturally why they associate why they like fat balls so much, but they do absolutely love them. They got this wee family comes through. You might get 6 or 7 on it some days. No, it's always whenever the light's really bad and they can't get decent photographs of them. But these wee guys absolutely love fat balls. So that's one of the reasons why I would have one in the garden. But actually, I separate my feeders around so they're not all in the same stand. So I've got a couple of trees I can just hang the feeders on. It stops all the birds sort of a bit of conflict. You get crows and magpies that go for these as well. Which again, it's fine. They all need to eat. But if you're wanting to try and attract long-tailed tits, that's one of the things that I'd always recommend everybody's the fat ball or suet blocks. Inside again, the wee compressed cage feeder. Let's see. Woodpeckers are getting more common now around the place. They quite like peanuts. Again, these wee tube. Let's see if I can get this to play here. You can hear if you volume, you can hear in the background. We're clattering about in the kitchen, trying to whisper, going, "There's a woodpecker." Sort of the first time seeing one of those in the garden is always exciting, but they are getting more common, and they do seem to like peanut feeders. So again, don't use the way you used to see it in the wee bags hanging all the time. Take the stuff out of the bags, drop it into this wee wire feeder. You can also use these for fat balls. It's another thing. You can actually get the suet balls and drop them down into it. Similar size mesh so that they can't drop out onto the ground and around the place. Keeps it a wee bit cleaner. I'm not a great fan of personally for the trays that sort of sit in below your feeder and catch all the seeds. Tend to go very damp very quickly. And it'll go off and get a bit sour. So if you let it drop onto the ground and just move your feeder now and again, just a couple of feet around the garden, it stops any big issues with hygiene directly under the feeder. But Let's see. Another one you get coming into the peanuts and things is siskins. What I would do with the let's show this one again. Like this, I would let that sit for a week, and then literally any peanuts that are left in there, just throw in the green bin. I would just throw them out, and over time you can work out. You get to know how much you can get away with putting in, over the space of a week, and then just basically throw it out because the stuff sometimes goes a bit fusty in the center, so it'll start going moldy. So literally just scrap it. It might only be a handful of peanuts, might not even be that much at the end of the week. And the same could be said actually for the sunflower feeders and things you got. Let it run right out. Don't keep pouring food in on top every time. Just literally, once your food runs out, fill it back up. Or if it's time to clean the feeder down, take it away, put the fresh feeder out, and clean down the old one. You don't really want the food going off, stuck in the bottom, and make a ring at the bottom of these. So you're better if you can just rotate them around. You can actually see on this feeder, it's quite easy to clean as well. It's just a couple of screws, and they're only wee short things, so it's a screwdriver, a couple of turns. We'll pop that out, and I can clean right down around the base of the feeder as well. You can say these wee siskins are a lovely thing. What I would do the odd time when I get photographs of them is actually, you see, look out for a nice twig or a branch somewhere with all the lichens on it. You can bung it beside near where the feeder is, and you know where the birds are going to land before they go to the feeder. So you got like a sort of 2-second chance to get your photographs. Again, you can set them up sort of 15 feet from the house. You can get quite nice shots of things. Let's see if this will play. Other thing's quite good, especially if a couple of grandkids, is they love feeding the robin. So I've started to train this wee guy. We're coming in for his mealworms. What I was doing, I was actually sitting in the seat at first and just leaving the mealworms sitting beside me. And I got to the stage where he'd quite happily come over and land on my hand, or he'd land up my shoulder. And I had to laugh because I would come in from work in the summer, and he literally would have been shouting from the top of the shed looking for his mealworms, and waited until I walked up the garden. You can see quite a small apple tree in the background here. Blackbirds love this in the autumn. This is just a wee basic tree. I think that was from Lidl. I think it was £6 or something like that. Doesn't grow particularly big. It's only going to grow to 4 or 5 meters maximum, and not a huge big crown on it. But the blooms of it as well, like even for the bees in the summer, there is fantastic. And now the crappie apples coming through, but the blackbirds have pretty much scoffed all them. They're no use to me. No, they're a bit better, but the birds love them. But this wee guy now, because of these mealworms that I'm feeding them, and you can buy them, and I get those from Jolly's. You just buy the plastic tub and again keep it in the garage, and they're actually they're just like a dry worm. They're not dried out. They're still alive, as you can see with him killing them before he knocks them off my hand. But they're really good nutrition for the birds as well. The sparrows will come down and steal them. So if I leave these mealworms sitting on the arm of the chair, the sparrows are straight down and they'll have a clip cleared before he gets a chance to get them. So I'll throw some in the chair, and the other ones I just keep up my hand and let him come and get them. It's funny, the wee male, he'll land the water in the hand. The female's not so much. You actually heard the wee squeaker of him. She's probably sitting in here somewhere waiting to get fed. So he'll come and take the worms out back and forward to her, and she'll take them back into the fledglings. Another thing when you're in your garden, once you have your feeders set up, is getting a drinking pool. So what I've started to do, again, because of photography, quite like setting up shallow trays of water and get a nice mossy log or a mossy stone, set it in the end of it, and you can get your photographs in as well to sit in the back garden without really having to leave the comfort of the house. This is actually one of the trays you put in below your flower pots and things you got when you watered stuff in the garden. They're only a couple inches, maybe 2 inches deep, and fill it up with water, set it in a nice level part of the garden, or if you want to set it up on top of a picnic table or something like that. And the birds, once they get used to being there, they'll be back and forward drinking out of it. It's easy to keep clean, just fresh water in it. I have water butts and stuff as well in the back garden, and the pigeons, because they're deeper, the pigeons love them. They come over and stick the beak right down in and get a proper drink of water. But they're like the wee chaffinches, and sparrows, blue tits, everything. They all come down to get a drink. See if there's one of the water butts. So it's just basically a half barrel, and now they're coming off the shed roof with the water running into it. And I've actually planted out water lilies around the edge here. I've got a few. I've actually now this one in particular. I've actually got fish in it to eat all the bloodworms, all the midge larvae. So they keep it reasonably clean. And any of the waste goes into it from the birds. The fish are quite happily eating away at those, and water lilies and stuff growing in it now as well. So it's actually starting to sort of mature nicely. You can see what I'm talking about here with the pigeons when they're drinking. They actually dip their bill in quite deep into the water. Again, it's just one of the trail cameras. You can see the way they need a bit of depth to the water to get it built right down to. Small birds don't need that. The pigeons will. He'll quite happily potter back and forward along the edge of this. Along the edge of this sort of barrel. You can actually see in the background here. Let's see if I can get this to stop. I don't know if you can see that you see the wee dish in the background here. It's like one of these wee ornamental flower things you can put water into. It's quite shallow for small birds, but it's also really good for hoverflies. I love it, and the bees as well in the summer. So it only holds maybe a centimeter of water, but they're easy to top up. Let's see. I remember what also, water sources are great for the birds. A small pond. It's one of these pre-formed ones that you can buy. Like sort of want some of the garden centres. I think it's at the most it's 18 inches deep. But the birds absolutely love it. Now this it is actually a carrying crow crossed with a hooded crow, so you're probably more used to be used to seeing hooded crows around the place. And you can still see the sort of grey trousers on this guy, but he's actually a hybrid with a carrying crow. He got one of the neighbours, must have had a bit of toast or something threw out for them, and he's brought it over into the pond, gets it softened up in the pond, breaks all the wee bits of it. He was getting fairly regular. That's why I stuck his trail camera onto the edge of the pond to try and catch him doing it, because I could see him out of the house. But again, it's just a water feature that a lot of the birds absolutely love. They come down around it. On the other side of this is actually a log pile, which I think I have a video here of. Don't know how squeamish everybody is, so maybe not play the video. But this sparrowhawk had actually caught one of the feral pigeons. It was clearing the seeds up and below the feeder for me. I'd come walking out of the garage, didn't know it was there. Heard a whole commotion out of the garage, see what was going on. And this guy had actually caught the pigeon, but whenever I walked out, then he lifted and left. It was out in the middle of the garden. I thought, I can't leave it in the middle of the garden. I'll set it up beside where the trail camera is, top of the garden here. So I come up and I literally threw the pigeon on this because he was still sitting up top of the tree watching me. So I threw the pigeon up on top, and lo and behold, he came back down and finished off eating it. Now, wee male one now is quite nice, but you can see you can see that big log pile that I have here. I have a water butt there, and another one over in this corner. But all around here would be growing teasel and things. Got all the seed heads. Goldfinches love them. They'd be feeding that during the whole big area here. Would just be filled with wildflowers, all different seeds, oxeye daisies and bits and pieces. But teasel's really nice. It's quite nice as well, bit of structure. If you're into your garden and you get these things growing a bit taller, gets above the height of the rest of the garden. Don't know. I'll briefly play this and see. Nobody should be eating their tea anyway, so it should be grand. It shouldn't put anybody off it. But as him just finishing off his bit of pigeon. Now you can probably hear in the background, you can hear all the birds all giving off. But this wee log pile is quite good for all my insects, my frogs and newts and things. All they lie up in here with the winter. Same as all these big stones. The wee ponds, literally just this wee patch here, just behind him. So it's well overgrown. It's just this one edge, sort of the high side to it that it would have, just because we've got the decking along here. But again, you can see the garden's far from tidy. It's my wildlife end up at the top end of the garden here. It's only literally, I think it's 12 feet wide, that wee strip. But loads of stuff used, with badgers and everything here. Let's see. No, one of the goldfinches just this wee reflection pull you can see sitting up on the edge of the tray. And you know, the moss at the end. But that was the sort of way I ended up setting a reflection pull up, just in the garden. So threw a lot of moss around the edge, but try and get nicer photographs of the birds. Then notice your man coming in and poking about around it. So when you're feeding the birds, you're going to create a wee tiny bit of habitat. It's not even huge. You get bits and pieces of badgers in coming in, foxes are in through the garden. I think we're in the middle of a development here ourselves. We're sort of 100 meters away from the nearest field, and the stuff still cuts through all the houses, through the back gardens, on the sort of corridors we're creating for them. So these are the problems with these feeders. I was talking about earlier on there, the cage. You can just see the tail feathers, the chaffinch, that he's actually caught through this whole feeder. This was around one of the neighbours' house, so they sent me the photograph and they were distraught. Sparrowhawk, and turned out he was doing this fairly regular, and ended up saying we better getting rid of the cage feeder, because the birds couldn't get away quick enough. They dodge away from the feeder to get into the bushes. And this wee guy he got used to them being there, so that was his regular hunting route. He's coming through most days, and nabbing things on the way through. Still lovely to see, beautiful birds. Not everybody's appreciative of birds of prey, but I love them, especially the colours and the wee males. So then, some people say it's a downside to feeding birds. You end up with rats and mice around the place. I don't know. When you see a wee wood mouse sitting like that, you're actually quite cute. See the wee hand sitting there holding on to the sunflower seed. This one's quite nice because you sort of get used to me. I was able to land on the ground, probably 5 feet away from the bottom of the feeder, waiting for them to come out, grabbing the sunflower seeds. So they have their place as well. It's a bit like weeds and wildflowers. Not everybody likes things growing in their own place, and not everybody likes animals being in their own place. And they like these guys in their garden, but they're fairly harmless. Rats maybe not so much if they're climbing up around the actual feeder itself. You just have to. That's again, it comes down to hygiene. Whenever you're filling your feeders, just wash your hands afterwards or wear a pair of gloves. As much protecting yourself as protecting the birds. It's just another one of the badger. You probably seen earlier on there that bit of decking sitting. Him coming in out of the garden. I was trying to keep him at the top of the garden instead of down on the grass. So I ended up putting 2 old dog bowls up with peanuts inside it for him. Didn't take him long working out what to do, how to get at the food. So that was my early warning system. So I could hear the ting of the bowls getting knocked apart, or the dogs get hitting down the kitchen. So I knew he's up the top of the garden. Not to be letting the dogs out then if they needed to go out for a pee or anything. But no, it's quite nice getting these. Again, that wee strip at the top of my garden is only 12 feet wide. It's not particularly big, but it's enough that the animals can move back and forward through. And the neighbours' gardens are something similar. So the stuff can move through the place fairly sort of incident free, should I say. The other thing to watch out for when you're doing your feeding is strange birds turning up. Garden feeders, a lot of the time, I guess, rose-coloured starling got wind of it. It was down in Dundrum. It was coming into somebody's feeder. They thought it was some strange looking, well, it is a strange looking bird. If you're used to seeing your normal starlings, then you see something like this land in your back garden. What the hell is this thing coming in? So a lot of the birders, self included, were all heading down, standing around this guy's back garden. Thankfully, his neighbours were fairly understanding. Not everybody is so appreciative, but this was coming into the garden for about 10 days, back and forward around the fat ball feeders. So whenever you're feeding and stuff, it's worth keeping an eye out. Then you get some of the real rarities. This be rustic bunting. Should be over in Asia. Turned up. It was January 21, possibly. The guy's garden in Bangor. At first, I think it went down as a reed bunting, and then one of the birders sort of seen the photograph and went, hold on, that's something different. and turned into rustic bunting. It's maybe only the second or third record for Ireland ever. And I was in the guy's bank over in Bangor West in his back garden. Again, he put word out and said, like, I'm happy enough for people to come down and have a look at it. And he set up like a wee viewing station at the side of his house. And for I think it's 6 or 7 days, people were coming and going from all over Ireland, even England. People were flying in to come in and see this wee brown job pottering about the guy's garden. So you never know what you're going to get. It's always worth keeping an eye out. And keep your wee bird books behind you or beside you. I have a whole rake of them here. Quite often my wife Helen would text me and say, "Oh, it's something different looking in the garden." I would try and grab a photograph, because you just never know. You never know what you're going to get turning up. But that's pretty much it. There's not really an awful lot of not really many photographs you can show you for bird feeders. So probably more if people want to ask any questions or a bit of a chat. Don't know what we're like for time, but I'm actually quite close there from a half hour for a change. Normally I'm wintering on and Kieran's going, "Shut up." No, if we've got a few questions there, I can get a bit of a chat going and see what people think.
Sounds good. I was keeping an eye on the chat there while we were going. I think there's a few people have added in a few wee questions.
Yeah.
So firstly, I have Bridie has asked, she has a good population of house sparrows. How can she support their specific needs?
House sparrows, you can probably get away with making, as long as you have somewhere decent cover for them, you might be able to get away with maybe making some of the sparrow terrace bird boxes up. So it's actually, instead of your standard wee standalone bird box, you actually make these boxes up like maybe 4 nest boxes side by side, because they will nest communally in around the eaves of your house and things like that. So if you can put your box up in around the eaves somewhere with maybe three or 4 entrance ways into it, they will use that. Same as tree sparrows and things, you get the old one of them kicking around. They'll quite happily go into the terraces. They like being together. That's why they're quite noisy. You'll hear them in the mornings in your hedges there, and they're all giving off buckets. So it's just having a good bit of cover for them as well, where they can dodge into quickly to get away from predators like sparrowhawks coming through the garden. Most of the seeds for them, they're more than happy with sunflower hearts. Maybe not, like I say, the seed mixes tend to be an awful lot of filler in them. Now you're only maybe getting, you'd be lucky if you got a quarter of it was actually good food. The rest of it's all, a lot of stuff's just fired in just to bulk it out, to make it look so everybody think, "Oh, we're getting a bargain." You're actually not. You're nearly better just paying a wee bit more and getting the good stuff, and it'll actually last you longer. You'll not waste half as much. You won't attract the rats and mice and stuff the same. But sunflower hearts is good for them, just with a bog standard, like a 4-port feeder. I wouldn't go, you get these feeders, maybe 10 or 12 ports on them. They're more hassle than they're worth. Four ports is plenty, and you can work out, you can gauge how much food you're using then, and it's easy to keep clean because they're shorter. If they're too long, you can't get them cleaned right down through unless you get a really long brush. And so you're better just with a sort of 4-port feeder, and work out your food. It means then you might have to replace it every day, but it's all fresh. At least it's fresh food going in all the time, not sitting too long. So now that's what I would say for house sparrows. Be one of the basic wee bird box with I think every 35 mil off the top of my head. I need to check the website, but you can check in BTO. They're quite good for their bird box sizes. The size of the hole for the front of them. It's with 35 millimeters. Blue tits and all are tiny. Now you always look at it and go, "How's a bird getting in through there?" It's amazing. It's amazing how you can squeeze through. Yeah.
And then Rona has asked, is there a time of year not to feed mealworms, as they might be a choking hazard to the chicks?
To be honest, the robins and stuff are actually breaking whenever you seen that one land in my hand with the worms, it was actually smashing it. So it actually breaks it, kills them, and then takes them into the chicks, and they're not much of an issue for them, to be honest. Robins, dunnocks, great tits and all be quite happily feeding on a caterpillar that sort of size, so they're fine. Because they're soft, I don't tend to use the dried mealworms much. I use sounds bad, but I use the live ones. They're probably better nutrients, they're better for the birds rather than these dried things. Have to sort of rehydrate them all the time. But no, you can buy those. You can buy the wee box of them, and they come and it nearly looks like sawdust, the stuff they're in, and just keep them cool in the garage or in the shed, and they'll keep for a week, 10 days. You'll not be long go through them. Once the birds get used to you feeding a few, the fire through them. You couldn't get them enough. They'd just be on them all the time. But no, mealworms I would quite happily feed all the year round. Especially good after the birds are bred, it gets the adults back in condition again whenever they're all starting to molt. It's an easy meal. When they're just pop out of the hedge, grab the mealworms back into the hedge again in the cover. No, it keeps them in good condition then.
That's great. Fiona has also asked, how can you stop the bigger birds from taking all the food and leaving the small birds without?
Quite often, big birds don't let you stand and watch them. With wee birds, they get wise. That's you stand with a cup of coffee and look out the window. The big birds all like it. But no, again, you can put those protective cages around them, but it makes the wee birds very susceptible to being ambushed then, but like the sparrowhawks. It's a hard one. You can, if you're handy, you can cut the wee tiny perch that comes on the feeders, cut it in half, make it smaller. So the big birds literally can't land on your feeder, then they can't hang on to it as easy. The cage feeders for the fat balls, it always becomes an issue because the magpies and stuff, they can hang on to the cage quite easily and peck away at the fat balls from inside it. So again, it's maybe set your feeders up somewhere closer to the house. The big birds aren't inclined to come in close. Like we one right outside the conservatory window. It's like 5 feet from it. We never really see the big birds at it at all. Whereas the stuff at the top of the garden, the big birds would straight down to it if you left foot out. So no, that'd be the only thing I would say. Maybe put it closer to the house so they're less inclined to come down beside you.
That's great. I see someone else has asked a similar question about a missile thrush who was chasing the smaller birds away. So I think a few people will be.
I know thrushes can be wild. If you have a berry bush in the garden, thrushes, we have a holly tree in the front garden, and the thrush literally sits on top of it. And no, God forbid anybody comes close to it. He's always chasing everybody away. He spends half his day chasing the things. To get away from his berries. So they are very defensive. But again, they're not they don't really like people being around that much. If they can see you dodging about, they're less inclined to hang around bullying the wee birds.
That's great. Yes, a few people leaving comments about some of their tactics as well in the chat. So definitely have a look there to see what everyone's saying.
I can nearly stop sharing that screen, could I, Kira?
Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah, you can stop sharing the screen. That works. Oh, that's nice. You can see a few more people's faces. Yeah.
Means me here for you, probably, is it?
That's perfect. Okay, great. Oh yes, someone else has asked about what they can do to help their wrens. They don't use the feeders and seem to stay in a large cotton Easter on the south-facing wall. If there's anything we can do for them.
Yeah, the wrens are. So I have a lot of around our back garden. I've actually loaded pots sitting, and this time of year they're all piled up very close together. Wrens are loving in through that because it's loads of cover. There's also loads of insects, all hibernating, wee spiders and bug, all different things in there. So the wrens are in through that. But also your actual bird boxes this time, if you've cleaned them out from last year, the wrens will actually use those to roost in. So what you can find actually communal roost inside the bird box. So you might end up with 10 wrens inside the bird box. The record's something ridiculous, like 17 wrens in a bird nesting box, and literally they all come around the roost together and keep nice and warm. Must look that record up. It's quite interesting. It's amazing to work out how many wrens are actually in the one box. It's normally really territorial, but they'll use your nest boxes in the winter for roosting in. And again, if you have pots or things, you got plenty of cover, even a pile of brash, a pile of old branches all through in the corner, they'll poke about in through that as well. They don't like being out in the open, so they like poking about sort of wee, quiet corners out of the way.
That's interesting. And yes, I think someone has put in some advice about potentially feeding birds in a long line, laying the birds feed in a long line to give the smaller birds a chance to peck at the edges, so that before the big birds can chase them away.
Well, if you get away with it, if you're happy enough feeding in the garden on the ground. No, I think there's a multitude of things out there for keeping the big birds away and trying to give the wee birds a chance.
Great.
No.
Someone has actually asked if there are any downsides to feeding birds and whether it compromises certain non-dominant species.
Uh, yeah, to a point, you need that's why you're sort of strict how much you give them. You don't tend to give them masses. You don't make them totally reliant on your garden. Um, so during the summer, I wouldn't tend to feed as much. I would still feed a wee bit because, especially in the later months, once you get into August, a lot of the birds then are losing condition because they've been breeding all summer, and they need to try and build themselves back up again, especially for the winter coming in, and all those fledglings are all trying to feed. So that's why I would sort of by August time. That's when I would start, sort of feeding properly again. Um, but this time of year now, I'd be leaving apples out in trees for the blackbirds and thrushes and all sorts of things. You buy a bag of apples and one a day, just stick it out in the branch, jam it in the branch there, and the blackbirds soon get used to where it is, and they'll come down, and you don't have to put a feeder. You literally just stick it on the branch from the tree, or if you put a fence or something up, put a screw into the fence and stick the apple on the end of the screw, just to hold it in place for them for a while. But no, it's always a difficult one. We've had too much of an impact on the wider countryside that we need to help them, because there isn't really the habitat as much there now as there used to be for them. So you haven't got the big thick hedgerows. If you look now at the minute, a lot of hedges are all clipped back. There's hardly even any berries left on them. It's rare now. You drive around, you see the big hawthorn hedges standing 25 foot high and 20 feet thick. It just doesn't happen nowadays. So the birds need I think they need all the help they can get really at this time of year, and well, all year round is for a bit of cover. But if you can feed them, keep them in good condition, then they bring on more chicks. And then slowly, things are getting better with farming and stuff, especially. A lot of people sign up for the environmental farming scheme, where they're leaving corridors around their fields with loads of seeds in them. So if the birds are there to be able to make use of that, brilliant. If we don't give them a helping hand now, and the numbers start to drop, whenever the habitat gets better, the birds aren't going to be there to recolonate these areas. So we need to try and hang on to what we have, because Northern Ireland's pretty bad for habitat loss. So we need every bit of help I think we can give them at the minute is good. It's probably doing more good than harm. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you've answered that. Someone was asking about whether it's okay to feed birds in the summer as well. I think you sort of answered a good bit of that there as well. Yeah. So that's all good. And someone has a question about how climate change is impacting the seasonal activity of the birds.
Yeah, I don't know if people have noticed at the minute the birds are starting to sing in the mornings. I didn't know whether it was just me, but even I've noticed they had snowdrops in the garden just after Christmas, which is bonkers. But no, I've noticed the birds are starting to sing already in the mornings. I've been walking the dogs there. It's sort of 6:30, 7:15, and it's just starting to come on. Whenever I'm coming back up the lane, you can hear the birds all starting to sing now. I think it's quite early yet. I'm just hoping they don't get caught out with another cold spell blowing in March or something again. It does seem to be sort of putting things out of whack a wee bit. It's hard to know immediately. It's going to take a year or two to work out. There's certainly birds hanging about now that didn't overwinter here. Like the black caps, they're finding now. Used to be the black caps that we had in the winter time. We're actually coming in from sort of Central Europe, things like that. We're actually having overwintering resident black caps are here all the year round. So we're not just getting our numbers bolstered by the European birds. We're actually having our own residents overwintering and hanging around. I think there's still the odd swallow down in southwest Ireland. Spend the winter. I think Galway and stuff have been one or two recorded, which is strange. No, the stuff shouldn't be here, but it is, unfortunately. And yeah, it's going to take a couple of years to work out what's going on yet. I see here somebody saying about light pollution. Yeah, I wondered about the LED lighting that everybody's putting out now for all the street lighting and things. That is definitely brighter than what it used to be. Street lights are probably going to be a bit of an issue for insects as well. But people are getting wise to the councils and to government departments starting to change the light color slightly to stop the insects, being moths and things like that. But that'll be handy Andy Corey, whenever I think he'd probably be doing a talk soon in Moss, and that'll be one of his bugbears is the LED lighting. So I'll not steal his thunder in that one. But no, he's got a lot to say about these big bright LED lights going in around the streets now and around the developments and even building sites and things you got where these things sit up all night, firing out huge big bright white light. Is definitely a bit of an impact for us.
Definitely.
See in here, somebody saying about increased rain from the washing the insects from the vegetation. It's actually a good question. I don't know if it's washing it from it, but certainly the stuff lying in the leaf litter, because it's lying a lot wetter now than what it would have been before, and lying damper for longer. So the insects are moving into the hedges and getting up off the ground slightly further, which makes them easier pickings for the birds. But then it might have a big impact on the population's insects over the years. So that's another one you be sort of keeping an eye on. But I was out in the reserve today. There we're cutting rushes, and the ground's still absolutely saturated. There's certainly been a lot of rain over the last month. It's been unbelievable. So I don't know whether even out in the fields, the like of the worms and things you got getting pushed up out of the ground because the ground's so wet. The worms have to try and get away because they're not really designed to be swimming about all the time. It's easy pickings for the birds, but it's a short-term gain for them. Be okay for the next month or so while they're all eating away, but then all of a sudden there'll be less worms there for them to eat next year. So it'd be something to sort of, it's another one's going to have an impact for us.
Someone was asking there that they have a gold crest near their back door and can't think of a way to help seed or shelter it through the winter. Do you have any tips about that?
Let's see, where's this one? Hopefully, yeah, it's going to be the problem. It seems the last couple of years we've had real bad weather in March time, and the small birds do struggle, no doubt about it. But they will bounce back. If there's good enough cover for them to get into, it's brilliant. They can get in there and sort of get a bit of shelter out of the worst of the cold. But it's provided the cover is good enough to have a load of insects. Log piles are brilliant for it. Log piles and ivy. If you have ivy growing up around old buildings and stuff like that, the goldcrest can get into the ivy. It's a great resource as well for later on in the summer. Whenever it flowers, you get all the bees in loving it too. But no, ivy's sort of a lot of time people go, cut it off the trees, and actually leave it in the trees does no harm. Puts a bit of wind load on them, but the trees have been growing for years with ivy on them. So I don't think us starting to cut ivy off trees now is going to make a big impact on the tree, but it'll certainly help the smaller birds and the bats and things like that. So if you leave even a log pile is brilliant for goldcrest and wrens, because they'll poke about down through there and get all the wee spiders out from in through it.
I think Reese has an interesting question. If there's anything practical that can be done to support and encourage the rarer garden birds we encounter, he has woodcock.
No, woodcock would be a nice one to have in the back garden. You must have a fair bit of good cover around the edges of it. I could probably I couldn't even count in one hand the amount of times I've seen a woodcock in a garden. I've seen them around the odd, probably the bird reserves. You'll see them around the edges and stuff like that, but certainly not my garden's certainly not big enough for one. There's not really much you can do for woodcock in your garden other than have this keep doing what you're doing. It's obviously working out. if it's that good. Plenty of tree cover, maybe rhododendron and stuff. Rhododendron's brilliant in your gardens. Don't let it loose out in the bogs. My heart's broke cutting rhodey out. But it does real good ground cover. Stuff like woodcock love it. Wind bushes or gorse, depending where you're from. I always call them winds. Everybody else calls it gorse, or a lot of people call it gorse. It's another one that woodcock like around the edge of the fields and old drains and ditches and things like that. I don't know what you really can do for the rarer stuff. It's a hard one. You'd be getting very niche if you're starting to go down that route, to try and create that sort of habitat for them. You need to have a lot of ground to work with, and it's really not there at the minute. We need to get bigger corridors, bigger networks around the place. let's see. Somebody said, yeah, 4 from the rough margins. Nice. I've been trying for years to get a photograph of woodcock. I think I got one there a couple of weeks ago out in Ballinahone, and that was a pure fluke. I happened to spot it in the middle of the heather up in front of me. But they're certainly a bird you wouldn't see an awful lot of. Just saying, don't buy a strimmer, buy a deck chair. I like the sound of that. That's far less work. Wonder would that work for us out in nature reserves? Not sure. Go on, Kira, buy me a deck chair.
Deck chair's all over the place. I think it'll be good.
Yeah.
That's looking good. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to take yourself off mute if you'd like to ask.
I'm
just having a quick check through here to see.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine you've probably covered all the questions very well.
If I can just raise just one point there, guys. Just someone thinks our good host thinks I have some sort of vast garden. I don't have. I have a good sized garden that's surrounded by mature oak, but then the property here, the rectory or parochial house property, backs on 7 or 8 acres of wild ground, and it's just been allowed to go wild for 10, 12, 15 years. It's got woodcock, it's got everything, and it's wonderful.
Fantastic. No, it's nice to be got that sort of bit of rough ground close to you. It's amazing what's lying up in there during the day. You wouldn't even think we'd see it. And then at night, that's when the stuff comes out, or even early morning, you'll get the stuff walking out around the edges of your garden.
Oh, absolutely. Just you think I'm some kind of landed gentry. That's not the case.
No, this is a bit of banter. No, it's lovely to get the woodcock coming around the garden. Be lovely.
Yeah.
Fantastic birds.
They're really difficult. They're really difficult to see and find.
Aye.
You almost need the dog to rise them.
To flush them. Yeah. No, I would see them. They'd be out doing the oil surveys and stuff there with thermal imager. You'll see them quite often in fields and things like that, or golf courses. They absolutely love golf courses or any horse paddocks and all. The grass is a bit shorter, and you'll see the woodcock out wandering about in them. But during the day, and they're lying up in that rough ground or rough edges, they're hard to see. If you have it back on, if you have it close to your garden or close to your property, you're laughing because you have a multitude of stuff. It could be lying up in there.
It's an absolute joy. It really is.
Yeah. No, that's great to. They're great to see. Maybe find me down in your back garden someday.
You're welcome. I'm a look. I belong to the Wildlife Trust and the BTO, and you're welcome up here anytime. In total, there's about, again, I'm stressing it's not mine, it's church property, but it's technically mine, you know.
Yeah.
But there's about 9 acres of real wilderness here. It's fantastic. Maybe 10 acres now, and a river running through it.
Right. Oh, you'll have everything down there then. If it's a river or a stream, it gets a good water course running through property. It's amazing what you can turn up. One of the ones you'd be more surprised. You'd be more surprised if there wasn't otters down in it than there was.
Well, you're welcome. I'm not going to say much quite enough, but you're welcome anytime.
No, thanks very much. No, it would be a laugh if I turned up in your garden someday and I'd be lying there with the ghillie suit and the camera and all the gear.
Well, you know, as long as you tell me first. As long as you tell me first, it's fine.
Aye. That's fantastic. It's good to know now. Is there a couple of? Let's just see there popped up another couple of messages here. Somebody's saying they might like a golf course, but not many dogs running about. You'd be surprised around Bangor in the evenings there when you're out, when you think nobody's out in the golf course at night and you're walking across with a thermal image camera. It's amazing where people turn up where you don't really be expected to see them. They have probably no idea that I'm walking about with a thermal, but that's another matter. I think that's about it. I think we've sort of covered most of the questions there. If anybody else has any, certainly if you want to fire yourself off mute, fire it up there.
Great. If that's all the questions, that's perfect. We're
Yeah,
gonna
no, I think that seems it all.
finish up right on time.
Yeah, I see a few
Um,
comments there. So thanks very much, everybody, for coming along tonight and for the comments and the photographs there. We're just sort of lucky to do a job that actually I love doing, and it's pretty much when I finish work, I go out and do exactly the same thing anyway.